Hi everyone, welcome to the second episode of ChangeMakers Mic Dub. I'm Anay and this is Mishka, and today we'll be interviewing Awespire, a student-led initiative focusing on mental health. A bit about yourselves.
So I'm Navya Bhanika. I'm a 10th grader. I'm really passionate about subjects like STEM and mental health.
I'm Rukhan Dedya, also a 10th grader, really passionate about STEM as a whole and robotics.
So for starters, can you tell us what problem you were trying to solve when you first started Awespire?
When we first started Awespire, the main problem that we looked to solve was the knowledge or the access about mental health services in underprivileged communities. We really noticed that maybe us as privileged children have access to counselors, supporting parents, friends who really understand us. But there are so many kids in India who just do not have the same access, and we see the impact that having a good mental health has on us personally also. And we said that we want to make that change in many other kids, especially the underprivileged ones' life.
So, I think you've worked a lot with everyone. So was there a specific moment that pushed you from caring about the issue to actually doing something about it?
I think what the really big Kickstarter for us was, we knew from the start that we wanted to tackle something mental health related because we realized we had the privilege for that and these underprivileged children did not. However, there was a meeting we had with this founder of Ask Foundation. So she's a professional in the field of service. So she gave us a lot of advice about how we could go about interacting with these kids, actually helping them. And she showed us the reality of what they have to go through households which are predominantly abusive. There's alcohol issues there. It gave us a very good picture about why we really need to care about this issue and use real symptoms to solve it.
So, from what we've heard, students are leading this. So, is there a reason why it's student-led rather than adult-driven?
The main reason behind that is the basic logic that if I'm talking to another 14-year-old, the other 14-year-old will understand me or know me better rather than if he's talking to an adult. When you talk to an adult, it probably looks like some sort of power and it doesn't feel like friendship.
Yeah.
And we've realized that mental health is best tackled when it's in the form of friendship or when you're doing it around someone in a comfortable space. And being student driven, we understand these kids and because we've gone through our own set of mental health problems, so we know how to communicate to them in a better manner and create that safe space where we can work with them.
Right. So is the student-led part of Awespire the main thing that sets it apart from your typical mental health initiative, or is there more that makes it unique? So I think there's two main things that makes Awespire unique. Firstly, of course, is the fact that it's student-led. I think a lot of mental health initiatives in India would likely more be student-led. That's the first factor. The second one is that we really tried to implement a lot of technology-related activities into our workshops. So this would mean using iPads, using AI chatbots, using videos, and online tools essentially to help them better understand the concept we're talking about. So not only is it relatable, but it's extremely efficient due to the integration of technology.
And we've also heard you use other forms of media such as podcasts, workshops, and community events. So how did you decide on using them as your main methods?
More about our workshops. This is the first podcast we're doing. That's simplified the message. But about our workshops basically work in a long-term fashion. And we realized that to create a change, it can't be a one-time thing and you have to go. So our workshops are 4 weekends. So we have 4 sessions with the same bunch of kids where we start developing ideas about mental health. We kind of do it we first test their knowledge about mental health. We talk about what emotions do they know, what do they do in some specific scenarios. We make them kind of do skit plays about, example, a scenario happens where a friend is being bullied in a group. What would they do to solve it? So we get to know what they know about mental health. And from there, we kind of develop the sessions. Eventually, they're using technology to address mental health. And yeah.
So when you're doing these workshops, there must be some children who aren't comfortable talking about their emotions, right? So how do you make the workshops better for those children? I think the best part about our workshops is that participation and attendance isn't mandatory. It's definitely a choice from the students. So we ensure that they have their own friends when they're like sitting in the workshops, when they're doing activities, so that in case they're uncomfortable to speak up, they're still comfortable in the environment itself when we're teaching them certain concepts, although they might not want to directly participate.
There's also that it may be the first week we go there, we're strangers to them. But like I said, if we keep on going every week, we become kind of known to them and it gets created in that safe space because we have a team of large volunteers. The same volunteers go to each session every week. So they become known faces and that's why it becomes a comfortable zone for them.
You kind of like make a bond.
Yeah.
So like, what's the most like meaningful response you've received from a student so far? And like, how did it like impact you as founders of the initiative?
I think the most meaningful impact I could think of was that in one of our workshops, like near the end, there was this like group of 3 girls. I think I really managed to connect with them because I kept speaking to them about like throughout the workshops. So then at the end, they like came up to me and just started talking. Like they were telling me about their school life, their friends, like how they got into a fight with a certain friend, how they recovered from it. And I realized they started opening up to me so much more at the end. And I felt like that clearly showed that I had an impact on them.
Another instance that I would take is that during one of the initial workshops we did, we asked students questions, how are they feeling? We asked them that question and we got a unanimous answer of only happy. No one ever said any other emotion like tired, sad, maybe angry, sleepy. But what happened towards the end or after our 4th session is that there was this one boy who was, I don't know, we found him to be a little distracted throughout the whole session. And after the session, he himself came up to us and he started talking to us saying that he's really sad that some situation was going on at his house. The fact that we could see that the same boy in the first session who was just silencing, happy and hiding behind that mask was able to open up himself and become a bit vulnerable in front of us showed that how we've been able to create this impact on these children to say that emotions are okay to be shared and they have to be shared.
That's really sweet. Is there something that surprised you about the project once you actually started, like, wait, sorry. Is there something that surprised you about the project once you,
Like once it was actually like out, like when you were actually.
and yeah. I think the best part about what happened is we started off as like a team of like 3 to 4 people. Essentially, it was like 4 of us as founders. We didn't really expect the response that we ended up getting, like not only with the fact that there were so many students that attended our workshops from the government schools, but also then we ended up having so many volunteers in our grade itself. There were so many people responding positively to the initiative. Yeah, and lower grades as well. So I think it was just a really meaningful part of the entire project that it was volunteers and students alike that wanted to support it. All right. So is there any particular way you measure the impact you have on the students when like you're just like helping them with their emotions, not like something that's like tangible? Okay, the main way that we do this is we take a survey at the start of the workshop and we take one at the end. So it says complex questions, like it talks about specific situations, understanding how they would react to it. Then it also asks them questions like who do they normally go to when they're feeling like, for example, anxiety or something like that. So essentially we track their progress based on the survey that we take on the start and the end.
Yeah, so you've like worked with a lot of students from what we've heard. So like has it changed the way you view emotional well-being or even leadership?
Emotional well-being now has started to seem like a privilege to many of us. We know that people hide behind those so-called fake identities of theirs of being happy, being playful. But when we actually talk to their teachers, to their supervisors, we get to know the reality of what's actually going on in their households. Like now I mentioned, abuse, alcohol is just abundant over there. And we when we think about it, when we reflect about it, and saying that, okay, what if something like this was going on in my house? How would I deal with it? We realize that we would not be able to maybe mask it or hide it as well as these students can, and they do it. And that's something that really surprised us throughout this whole journey.
Yeah, so clearly these students have like a lot to deal with. So how do you balance empathy alongside like professional boundaries while you're doing service work in this space? I think the best way that we do this is that when we go to like government schools to do these projects as well, we don't go alone. Like it's not just Awespire volunteers. We have mentors from like Ask Foundation, as I was mentioning before, to help us like guide us through the entire workshop, because at the start, we also still start off with lighthearted topics. Like we don't let it get to something such as talking about abuse, right? We start with lighthearted topics, but then if a student really wants to speak about heavier topics, I think we let that conversation happen with an adult as opposed to us, because again, we're not professionals in this field, but we are trying to make whatever impact we can.
So, how do you ensure like some voices like aren't left out? Because a lot of students don't really like talk a lot or like speak up. So like how do you ensure their voices aren't left out?
It's the same way as we do it in our classes, right? We prompt them to try and speak. Yes, people would be feeling uncomfortable, and eventually that's the barrier we want to break. It's never that we choose not to take a specific few kids, but that's what's allocated to us by the government school because they understand the initiative and they know what kids will actually be impacted by it.
So clearly, Aspire's been really successful so far. But if there was one thing you could change about Aspire to make it better, what would you change and what would you keep the same? I think one thing I would change about Aspire is simply widening our impact. I think as of now, we are very Mumbai focused. We do have like a chapter in Paris actually because of one of the founders. But I do really hope that we can branch out to more states in India, like Rajasthan, Gujarat, and other places.
Okay, so what advice would you give to students who want to start a service initiative but don't really know where to begin?
I think it has to be very focused. Your focus initiative cannot be just teaching math, teaching music, just going and doing anything you like. You need to have a clear goal. If you're especially working with children or other children like us, you need to have a clear goal that you want to achieve, and then you need to plan around it. You need to plan a lot about your sessions. You need to actually create an impact on those students. You need to take expert approval about everything that you do to know that you're not only wasting your time, but you're not also wasting the children's time.
Right. So clearly for success, you need a lot of like help, and it's like a long journey. But what message do you hope stays with students after listening to this podcast? I think honestly, the biggest message that should be there is that no impact is too small. You think, don't be scared to start off with helping one student, helping anyone in your community, because even taking one step could end up having such a huge impact. Like again, Aspire started off so small, but because we had such hope in the impact we were making, we ended up growing.
Yeah, so if someone listening wants to contribute to Aspire, how can they start?
I think the best way to contribute to Aspire is honestly, I guess, ensuring that you make one person smile every day, because we're a very mental health focused initiative, and think ensuring that people feel comfortable around you, ensuring that you're brightening one person's day, at least maybe once a day, would be the best first step.
Wow, I'll definitely be doing that from now on. On that note, thank you for tuning in, everyone, and tune in for the next episode of ChangeMakers Mic'd Up.